When my son was born, I took a lot of pictures. I showed these pictures to everyone. And this was not what you might think. Micah was born before I had a phone with a good camera on it. He was born a year before Instagram was even a thing. I wasn't even really on Facebook at this point. These pictures were more or less the kind that had to be printed. They had to be printed to be shared. My experience as a dad overlaps the wallet-sized prints era and the iPhone camera roll era of picture sharing. Today, putting a picture in front of everyone you know is as simple as hitting share. Back then, it required some footwork. But the good news, the joy that I knew, was absolutely worth the extra effort. When we have good news, we want to share it with everyone we know. Listen to these words from the Apostle John. That which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we looked upon and have touched with our hands, concerning the word of life. The life was made manifest, and we have seen it and testify to it and proclaim to you the eternal life which was with the Father and was made manifest to us. That which we have seen and heard we proclaim also to you, so that you too may have fellowship with us. And indeed, our fellowship is with the Father and with His Son, Jesus Christ. And we are writing these things so that our joy may be complete. These are the words of the book 1 John, chapter 1, verse 1 through 4. John is a man who has good news. He's experienced this good news for himself, and he wants whoever reads his letter to know this good news as well. What John has experienced has radically changed his life. It's filled his senses and brought him joy. But without sharing this good news, his joy isn't complete. It's not enough for him to know the good news. He wants everyone to know the good news. Are we like that? Are we as crazy about the good news of the gospel of Jesus, the Son of God? Are we so consumed by the experience we've had in Him that we can't help but spread that good news with everyone? Historically, we know that John was intensely involved in sharing the gospel with his immediate community. But writing a letter that would survive to the year 2020 means that John was doing more than just talking to people in his living room. John was spreading the word. The writing of his letter, the writing of his gospel account, the ministry he participated in was more than just hitting the share button on Facebook or retweeting a nice sentiment. This was John carrying the picture of his joy to share with anyone who would listen. And John wasn't alone in this. This was the ministry of the apostles, the us, we, and our that John talks about in the beginning of this letter. Faithful men and women of the early church made their daily lives about the sharing of the good news they had found. I want to encourage us all today to consider how much of our joy we are sharing with others. Are we as enthusiastic about the sharing of the gospel as we are about the sharing of memes and news articles? If not, maybe we should be praying for God to reinvigorate our love for the gospel. We're going to spend a little bit of time in the next several videos looking at the gospel, the core and central message of the life of Jesus. I love you, and I pray today that the gospel of Jesus would fill you in such a way that you can't help but share the good news with others.